Hello, this is Mr. Doty, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about this assignment that I have on the screen here. This is a broken out section example, and it's problem 12.30 in our sectioning part of the class. Basically, what I wanted to do is, there's a couple of different ways you can do this. One way would be, as I explained in the kind of the intro video for this class, you can do an auxiliary view, which means you would have a view that's 90 degrees projected off of your angled flat surface here. Or my alternative idea is to use, since you really haven't had auxiliary views yet, you're going to later in this class, let's use an alternate view, because the cutting plane line is also called a viewing plane line. And whether you remember it from 102 or not, we talked about that a little bit as far as the different uses of this line and the different kinds of line, what it looks like as a line type. So this is the assignment. Basically it says do a broken out section. You don't have to break it all the way down to here because this is all the same. I just broke it down, just a little bit, and I'll show you how I did that. It's real easy. Broken out sections are pretty simple. It just helps us to see inside of something so that we can dimension to it a little bit easier. Okay, so be careful when you're drawing this. Make sure you try to get everything lined up correctly. We'll go over here to the AutoCAD portion of it here. And this is what I'm talking about. So what I did is I made a cutting plane line and I moved it out here. Well, I'm not cutting anything, but it's kind of like a camera view. Okay? Whenever you create a camera view in some programs, it puts a little camera and it's pointing in the direction that you want to look at. So when you go to that view, then you see what the camera sees. Well, that's what this basically is. This is what we call a viewing plane line instead of a cutting plane line, because I'm not cutting into it, I'm just showing you what I'm looking at. So what I've done is I've made this view of what I'm looking at, view A, and I've placed it over here. If I was doing the auxiliary view, then this guy would be up here, aligned, lined up with this perpendicular to this guy right here. You'd flip it 90 degrees and it'd be laying up there. So anyway, so what I did is I took a drawing that somebody else had already sent in and I adjusted it to make it work for what I wanted. Now, technically this dimension here should be over here, but you remember that little rule where it says dimension lines and extension lines shouldn't cross? Well, we would have an extension line going through a dimension line. And this dimension in this view is more important. So, in this case, we're going to deviate from my normal of yelling at you for putting this dimension here, even though it's simple and easy, and when I was learning, I kind of got in the habit of doing that myself. Now, you'll probably notice that this guy probably isn't the right distance here, now that I'm noticing. Hadn't fixed that, but you get the idea. There would be a hidden line there. You'd have a center line here. One of the things that I didn't go back and do was go back and put in an actual center marks here. There's a couple of ways you could do it. I mean, you could take your center line and make a short one and array it around. That would be fine. It just depends on what you want to do. Using the center mark command, one of the things to get that to work correctly is you need to set your center exe command. This is what changes that center mark, your center mark and your center line. That's what adjusts how far it goes past the outside of the object that you're picking. So like if you're picking a circle for a center mark, it's going to go either, the default is 0.12, which would be for your inch drawings, and that would be 1/8 of an inch. For metric, you need to change it to 3. So if you type in center EXE before you put in the center marks or center lines and set it to what it needs to be, if it's 3 for a metric, so this is metric, so it's 3, or 0.125 is what I would set it for an inch drawing. And if if you have the default of the 0.12, that's fine. I'm not going to yell at you for 0.005. All right, so what that means is, so like over here, what I did is I clicked on center line, and then I picked this line and this line, and it made this guy right here. You know what? I don't know if I've never tried doing one of these, because this was already here where we had made this a center line. But I'm curious. Let's see if it works for arced. No, doesn't look like it likes to do arcs. Only does straight lines. Oh well. So like if I wanted to figure out what the middle of from here to here was, and see there it stuck a center line in there for me. And apparently I don't have those lined up exactly. Well, this drawing had some issues, so it's just an example. But as far as the dimensions go, this is the 108 to the center. Here's how thick this is. It's at a 45-degree angle. That's the information I need from this. And then, projected off of this view, we've got this guy over here, and it shows that you have the internal. We don't dimension two hidden lines, right? So you're saying, well, how do you get that dimension? Well, that's what I came over here and said that, hey, it has a thickness of this right here. Boom. Now, I could, if I really wanted to. You're not supposed to put a dimension on the view, right? This one isn't on the view. It's right here, and that's okay. If I didn't have this 108 placed here, like, if I put that 108 dimension down here, which I could, I could take this down here and hopefully it doesn't mess up. And I could pull it down there like so. That would still give me the 108. That would leave me being able to go in here and put in, you'll notice I use the aligned dimensioning. The aligned version, what that does is you have to have the points have to be lined up or parallel with each other. So that it works correctly. You can't use a linear, or it'll just give you vertical or horizontal. Then we can do that again, and I could dimension from here over to here, and I won't guarantee that it's correct, but we'll see what comes up. Alright, and then I could pull that up there like so. Scooch this one down a little bit so that they're not lined up. And then I would scoot it in just a little bit because it needs to be a little closer. Somewhere in there. Alright. So there I could do this, and I wouldn't have to have that 7.8 there. So there's another option of dimensioning, and then like I said, I could get rid of this if I wanted to. Then I would get rid of the 108 there. Then that would make me a much happier person. Okay. Now, like I said, the only other thing would be is putting some center lines on here. I don't think you can use this guy. Yeah, he doesn't like that. He likes to have straight lines. So, I mean, you could try to put a center mark on here, but it looks goofy. If you pick on this and then you pick on this, right? Well, the only problem is it needs to be rotated. So then you'd have to go and you'd have to rotate. And then you'd have to rotate it. Let's see. What is that? 45? Like so. Well, then it looks weird. And I don't know if you can explode this one or not. Let's try it. Why not? Hey, it does explode. Alright, well, there's an easy way to fix it. So if you explode it, then it divides it into 3 lines like so. And then what I can do is I can go to my mirror command, which is under the home, mirror, mirror on the wall right there. And if things work the way I want to, and I've got my polar on, and then I can do the same thing again. Now be careful when you're selecting stuff so that you don't, when you select your items, make sure that you don't accidentally select the wrong things. And then I'll go to mirror. We're going to go to center just to make sure. And no. Alright, now I like that better. So there's a way to do it. So all I did was I went here, did my center mark after I set up my center exe, and then I exploded it, and then I just mirrored it around to where I was happy with the way it looks. And here's another thing. So here, let me erase these two guys. So what if I went here and did my center mark and picked on this guy right there? Now that makes a little bit prettier center line for me, and I like that better. So that looks pretty good. You'll notice that most of them line up. And here's the thing. It's okay if this center line doesn't line up perfectly with this. If we were drawing it by hand, sure, we would make it perfect, but it's a computer. It's okay. Alright? So I expect you to have this guy in the right spot. So to draw it, one thing you can do is you could actually project off of this here, okay, and draw your view up here to start and then move it down, right? So you might start out with this up here, right, lined up with this, and then just move it back down here when you're done, right? So almost done with this one, and this one's not too bad. It still ends up being 12 minutes, no big deal. So hopefully this helps you out on this drawing, and it's just another way of showing you how it works. Oh, and since it's metric, I'm going to go down here, and I'm using my layout with all my different sized sheets on it, right? So this one fits on a metric B at 1:1, and see how this fits nice and pretty on here? This is great. I like this. This is a good looking drawing. There's room to put my notes that I would need on here, material, if there's fillets and rounds that I need to put a note on there for, any of that kind of stuff I can put here. And of course you fill out your title blocks and all that down here. So this is what it should look like, and we'll see you on the next video. Have fun.